So hello and welcome back to the FPL Talk channel, and today I'm going to bring you a new team review episode. Now, we've not had one of these in a while, but actually I'm going to bring you two before game week 1 because it's fast approaching and I want to review as many of your teams as possible. Now, if you haven't entered already, make sure you DM me a team on Instagram and subscribe to the YouTube for a chance to feature in these videos. But I have over like 99 requests, so remember, if you're not in this one, you might be in the next one, but I do just pick it at random so it's fair, so everyone has an equal opportunity. Now remember to stay tuned for each team because you might have the same player that someone else has and I can give you advice who to improve for him or whether you should keep him because he's a good option. So you can take my advice how you will and apply it to your own team still. And obviously we've just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I very much appreciate that. Now we're just going to keep working our way up and hopefully we just keep getting more and more. And if you are new here, please also do drop a like on the video. But without further ado, let's get into the first team. So starting off, we have Max's team here. It's got Martinez in goal, and with Aston Villa's start to the season, that could be a great choice for 5 million. We saw how effective Martinez was when he moved from Arsenal to Aston Villa, and the save bonuses he did manage to get in FPL, and a lot of players. He was a real fan favourite. A lot of people brought him in. However, Aston Villa did struggle a bit more defensively last season, and not many put him in, but they have strengthened. They brought in Diego Carlos, and you really think that defensive line is going to be a lot more solid this year. However, you have gone for an Aston Villa triple up. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this because a lot of FPL players do this without knowing. If Aston Villa concede, you're already down to 2 points each asset, and that's for 3. So I think you should spread out the players that you have from each team. So maybe change Digne or Cash to a Trippier. Also Zinchenko, you've already got him actually. So you could switch him to a Trippier, or you could even downgrade to a 4.5 million, but I wouldn't really recommend that. You could even get Cancelo. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one to change. But I feel like a Newcastle defender there, probably to Kieran Trippier, would be your safest bet for versatility. And it means that you won't suffer if Aston Villa do concede majorly and you can get points elsewhere. Obviously, Zinchenko I just mentioned by accident because I didn't see you already had him, is a good one because he has the option to play midfield and he can play left back, where Kieran Tierney is very injury prone, so he's likely to slot in there whenever he is injured as well. Trent is a must-have. I'm glad you've got him in there. 7.5 million, as I said in my last video where my first draft is. Make sure you go to the channel and check it out if you haven't seen it already, but he's essential and he is the most expensive for a reason. Gets the most attacking returns in a strong Liverpool side that are always likely to keep clean sheets. And Reece James, definitely prefer Reece James over Chilwell. However, something to watch is they've been linked to Dumfries and Walker Peters, so Reece James could be a bit of a rotational risk. However, they might opt to play him at right centre-back, but you've got to feel like Koulibaly is going to operate that role, so that transfer for Chelsea is something to watch out for. Then if we go into your midfield, you've got Saka for Arsenal. I really do like this one. Then you've also got Salah and Diaz. Saka's a really good one. Looked really sharp in pre-season. Again, you do have Jesus and Saka. So maybe what I would do in your position, possibly, is maybe downgrade Saka to possibly maybe like a Neto and go for a really budget option, just so I don't feel like Arsenal are the most reliable, especially you've got 3 Arsenal players to go for. So maybe switch that up a bit. Then you could slot in a Cancelo in the defence, and that could really get you some points. Cancelo's got like over 40% ownership, and there's a reason why for that, because of how good he was last season. Always returning, and I didn't have him, and I was honestly always regretting it. So maybe downgrade Saka and don't go for the Arsenal triple up. And then invest in your defence so you can get rid of that Aston Villa triple up that you've got at the back. Harry Kane, I really do rate. I would keep Jesus over 70% ownership, like the most owned player in the game. It's ridiculous. That's due to being the fact that he's 8 million, great value, and he's been on red-hot form in pre-season. Harry Kane over Haaland is what I'm favouring at the minute as well, and that's a great decision. You've also kept Salah as captain. Salah, the most expensive player in the game, just like Trent, the most expensive defender. There's a reason for that, and Salah has returned in the past 5 game week 1s with a goal or assist, so he's certainly the man I would look at captaining. And Luis Diaz for 8 million, I would opt for Luis Diaz and go for the Liverpool triple over Arsenal, the Arsenal triple up, just because Liverpool are so much more reliable and always get better results. So Luis Diaz is going to play regularly as well, simply because Diego Jota got that hamstring injury. So I would definitely go for that. But other than that, it's very solid. If we quickly do take a look at your bench as well. You've got Meslier there, a good substitute keeper. Or he got the most saves in the Premier League last season, however. He's not going to get you many clean sheets, let's be honest. You've got De Silva, just like me, who could potentially play regularly after they lost Eriksen, where they signed him and went on a massive winning run. Then he left, and they're going to go on a bit of a losing run and quite struggle for creativity if they don't get someone to step in with some more creativity. And De Silva has done well in pre-season, and he's someone that could be one to watch, especially for 4.5 million. But you've got Pereira there, the best 4.5 million, guaranteed to play in that attacking midfield role for Fulham, and you couldn't even start him some weeks, to be honest, because they've got Mitrovic in the box, and they are strengthening quite well. They signed Palhinha, a Portuguese international CDM that was wanted by some of the top clubs in Europe, and they're only going to be a better squad this year. I feel like they might do better than previously because they've invested their money better, but that is Max's team. It's looking pretty good, to be fair. Only a few things I would change, but let's get into the next team. So into the next team, we have Finn G's team. Now, he's got Raya in goal. A lot of people do actually favour Raya, but personally for me, you should do the strategy. Bring in Sanchez from Brighton for 4.5 million. And Brendan Rodgers recently said that Ward would be starting for Leicester as Schmeichel's leaving for Nice. So this means that you can do a rotational strategy up until game week 8 with these two players. And you can get 7 green fixtures and only 1 orange fixture. So that means you get 7 easy fixtures and only 1 mediocre. I'm pretty sure it's against Newcastle for your goalkeeper position. So that gives you a really high chance at those clean sheets. Then you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. Again, he's pretty much solidified in most people's teams. You've got Matty Cash, who's got really high ownership, and I'm pretty sure he's quite a good one, to be honest. He scored quite a few goals at the back end of last season, and he was in some good form. Also, his numbers are really good, his in-game numbers, so I'm pretty sure that his ownership is skyrocketed because of their starting fixtures, and he could really be a good one in the first few weeks of the season. I went for Digne as a differential just because I feel like he's on a few more set pieces, and that gives me the added chance of getting some assist bonuses, so that's the only reason I did that. Then you've got Robertson. A lot of people favouring Trent and Robertson in the FPL community, especially through the experts, because he's 1 million cheaper than Diaz, so they feel like to use the third Liverpool player on Robertson rather than Diaz, because again, you get that extra million, and Robertson always produces consistent points for every FPL year. You know exactly what you're getting with him, whereas Diaz hasn't had a full season yet. Yes, he was good at the back end when he joined Liverpool last season, but we'll wait to see how he does in his full season, but he always looks sharp. Reece James, we spoke about him, a very solid option. Prefer him over Chilwell. Salah, again, nailed on in most people's teams. Some people doubted whether they should go without him or put him in their team, to be honest, and I think that was a silly decision. We saw him in the Community Shield, a very effective player, as he always is, a big threat, and he had Cancelo on toast for most of the game, let's be honest. Then Jarrod Bowen, a lot of people not looking at Jarrod Bowen. I think he's got about 8% ownership when I last looked, around that 9% ownership, and that's really low for someone who scored so highly in FPL last year. I think people feel like he's too highly priced to put in, even though he's around the margin of Saka, and people find Saka obviously more reliable, being from Arsenal, and Arsenal have strengthened and looked really good in pre-season. But Jarrod Bowen is slept on. West Ham pretty much scored in every Premier League game last season, so they've always got a goal threat, and also we signed Aguerd in defence, who's probably going to miss Man City in the first game week, and we also got Scamacca, who was linked with PSG, so he must have something good about him. 6'5", so Bowen can whip the ball in. Scamacca heads it in and gets some FPL points. Happy days. Martinelli for 6 million. I was you know, at the beginning I was thinking, he's a bit of a risky one, but through pre-season he's proved me wrong, starting many games. It's because he's got a rotational risk with Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe has tended to play off the left rather than switch with Ødegaard in the cam, so that means when they're both fit he might get subbed off at 60 minutes, but for 6 million in an Arsenal team as an attacker, Martinelli is a really good option. As I said, been linking up with Jesus in pre-season really, really well, and he is a good option. And then we also have Bailey, who not a lot of people will have even considered before pre-season, but now he's had pre-season and scored some goals. People are very happy with him, and I would be too. Only 5 million, even cheaper than Neto if you want to save a 0.5 million, and Steven Gerrard even said he's come back a different player, so that is a good option for your team that you've put in there. And then the normal duo of Kane and Jesus. We've only seen Kane so far, not one Haaland, and I just feel like with Kane you know what you're getting. He's played in the Premier League before, he's proven, and he's always going to play he's always going to play and get those minutes on the pitch under that Conte system, whereas Haaland could be at risk of some pet roulette still, where he likes to play Foden in the CF position, and he also has Alvarez, who scored in the Community Shield, who did come on the right, but he will will like to use him through the middle for his pace, and he always likes that pressing style Alvarez, so we'll have to wait and see what he does in that one. And Jesus obviously been on fire in pre-season, as we've already said. If we do take a quick look at what you've got on the bench now, you do have Areola, which is interesting. So as I say, I would switch your keepers to Ward and Sanchez so you can do that. You've got Pereira. That's a good shout. And then Zuma. Now, if you want a West Ham defender for to rotate in the next coming game weeks, I would go for Soufal. 4.5 million as a West Ham defender is a really good asset. But if you want to spend 5 million on a West Ham defender, Creswell is your man on them set pieces. He does pop up with a goal and assist here and there, and especially whipping the ball into Scamacca and Antonio, Creswell can be very effective. And you've also got the Andreas Pereira, who pretty much is guaranteed to play every game. So that is a really nice team from Finji. I hope you can take my advice and use it well. But without further ado, let's get into the next team. So we're moving on to Tobias' team, or Trobus' team. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong. But you started off with Mendy in goal. 5 million. Most people thought he'd be valued at 5.5 million. So he's a great budget keeper. Obviously, Chelsea have really strengthened in pre-season and added to their team with Koulibaly, Sterling. So they could really look good going into this season. However, they have struggled in pre-season. But I'm sure they'll just brushing off the cobwebs and they'll find their form again when the season kick starts. But Mendy always gets save bonuses as well, even though Chelsea are really strong. So it's a bit of a weird one, so he's probably the best one you can go for at the 5 million bracket, and that's if you don't want to upgrade to the 5.5 million of Edison or Allison. But Chelsea do have a nice start to their season with their fixtures, and again, it doesn't really matter who they play because they can keep a clean sheet versus anyone really, other than Man City and Liverpool most likely. But you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold there, again, nailed on for most people. He has to be. Laporte, he has been suffering with some injury, so if you're feeling cheeky, you could go for a Nathan Ake and save some money, or you could just simply swap to a Ruben Diaz and make some adjustments to have a Man City defender. Then you have got Reece James. Again, we spoke about Reece James, very solid. Now, this is the first Perisic we've seen. Perisic's ownership was about 29%, I think, when I looked, around that mark anyway, around the 30% mark. And I'm not sure about this one. He hasn't even played much in pre-season, was suffering with injuries, and he's only just coming back. I would honestly only expect him to play 1 or 2 games in the first 3 fixtures that Spurs have. Again, later in the season, he could be an absolute amazing asset. We've seen how quality he is playing in the Champions League for Inter, for Bayern, all those different teams, and he's one to watch out for. But I would not start the season with him. You could even go for a Zinchenko and swap him out, or you could also go for one of the Aston Villa assets who are looking good. Now, there's your Pedro Neto as well. With Raul Jimenez getting injured, Pedro Neto is a brilliant choice. You know, he didn't get many points last year because he was highly injured, but this season could be the chance for him to kickstart, and he has scored a few in pre-season, which you always love to see. Then you've got Mason Mount. Now, I actually quite like the choice of Mason Mount. Again, with Chelsea strengthening and their fixtures, they do look quite good. And he might play off the left in a front three, which could be very effective. Because originally we did have Kai Havertz, but he's obviously converted to a forward. So I do like Mason Mount. You could obviously have played it safe and gone for a Saka or Luis Diaz, but I like that you've changed it up there. Then obviously you've got Salah, which is a must-have. Now here's our first Haaland. I mean, people were very quick to transfer Haaland out, let's be honest. I mean, he missed an open goal, yes, but it happens to the best of us. He's trying to settle in. There's a hostile crowd that he's not used to, hasn't played in England before, and he's only going to adapt and get better. He's going to score a load of goals, don't get me wrong. Look at his previous records. They can tell you that for themselves, but I rate that you've gone for Haaland. I do find Kane more reliable, but there's nothing wrong with Haaland. Then you've got Jesus, again, 70% ownership, just above it probably, and he's a must-have. He's been on fire, hat-tricks in pre-season and all sorts. Then you've got Martial. Now, I like that as a differential. It's very risky because obviously you could downgrade to Martial and have the cheapest striker and then go for like a Cancelo at the back, upgrade Nico Williams, all those millions. Or you could also go for someone else at the back, I don't know, a Robertson maybe, and it would allow you to have a Luis Diaz in midfield maybe. But Martial is a nice differential, to be honest. He's been on fire in pre-season, but he does have that risk with Ronaldo. It's whether Rashford or Martial are going to play off the left, probably, because Ten Hag, let's be honest, is going to want to start Ronaldo, and Ronaldo's not going to sell for sitting on the bench. He'll just throw one of his tantrums and kick off. But we all know how quality Ronaldo is, and I don't think Martial would start instead of him. So maybe Jadon Sancho in midfield is the safer option there, because Jadon Sancho is still going to play on the wing and be influential, and he is lower priced than what people would have thought. So maybe I would downgrade Martial because he is quite a risk, even though he could have been a good differential, and upgrade a midfielder to a more elite midfielder. So that means you have guaranteed game time and also a better chance of those returns. So maybe you could also go for a Coutinho around the £7 million mark if you didn't want to spend too much. There's also Martin Ødegaard, Bruno Guimaraes, all those names that you could also look at. And Leon Bailey, you could also upgrade a midfielder to Leon Bailey and play him, and then improve your defence drastically, and instead of Laporte, get that Cancelo in. Or you could also get another £5 million defender and get Matty Cash in or someone like that, or a Zinchenko. So that team is very good. Obviously, you do have Nico Williams on the bench, as I did mention, who for £4 million does allow you to spend money elsewhere, and he's guaranteed minutes, which is good. The Pereira and the De Silva, who we've already seen. And make sure you do get Ward on your bench instead of Caballero, because Ward is most likely going to play, as long as Dubravka doesn't move in the Maddison deal. But that team is very solid. There's only a few bits I would tweak and change, but that's a very good team. Let's get into the next one. So into our penultimate team, we've got one more team to review after this. As I say, make sure you stick around, because my advice could still improve your team. And if you're not in this one, you can still be in the next one. So starting off, Liverpool for life. Again, a controversial name. A few of you might not like that, but we're still going to review his team because he's a nice guy, right? So starting off, he's got Ederson in goal. 5.5 million. Again, I quite favour Ederson over Alisson, just because Man City did record slightly more clean sheets last season, but Alisson did record slightly more saves. But honestly, the save bonuses are really not going to make a difference, because let's be honest, they're only going to make 1 or 2 a game. The defence and players in front of him are too superior for most attacks to even break down and have a shot, and even if they do, it's going to most likely be a long shot and be off target. But Ederson for 5.5 million is really solid. Obviously got 2 newly promoted sides in their first 5 game weeks, and they're very solid. I think it's game week 10 or 11 they play Liverpool, and that's the only time that you might go a bit worried. But as long as you have Ward on the bench, let's see what keeper you have. Okay, you've already got Ward on the bench. Perfect from you. You've already got Ward. So in that game week, you can always swap Ward on if you're a bit scared, even though they probably would keep a clean sheet against them anyway. Then you have also got the Trent and Robertson double up. I very much rate that, simply because, you know, it saves you that extra million, and you just know what you're getting with them. They're safe bets, no risks, and that triple Liverpool that you've got there is very solid. Cancelo, as we said, probably the most nailed on defensive asset for Man City, other than Ederson in goal, which isn't in the defensive line. But Cancelo, we've saw, yes, he was rusty in the Community Shield, but he'll sort himself out. He's pretty much world class, let's be honest. And if they sign Cucurella, I can see him starting right back anyway, and he'll probably be even better right back on his favoured foot. And you got to remember, he's playing left back on his left foot most of the time, even though he plays as an inverted fullback. But that'll only benefit his game. Then you've got Zinchenko, as we've already said. He can play instead of Tierney, and he can play midfield, so that's a increased chance at attacking returns, and that versatility means he's going to start more games. Then you've got Mo Salah as captain. We've spoke about this. Everyone's got Mo Salah as captain. It has to be. Bukayo Saka, red hot form in pre-season. Very, very solid. He's a good choice. You've also got Neto there and Bailey, the double cheap options. Now, I personally wouldn't go for the double cheap options. I'd go for Neto or Bailey, just because if they don't perform, you're then stuck and you can't really change players, because there's not many good ones around that mark. So maybe, we'll look at your bench in a bit, but maybe downgrade one of them to like a 4.5 million, and that gives you the versatility then to upgrade and downgrade your other player, who then you're going to change. You've got Kane and Jesus up front, which are very rare. Again, Kane over Haaland. I think that's what, is that 3-1 Harry Kane at the minute? Again, you just know what you're getting with Kane. It's a safe bet. I mean, Haaland is class, but he hasn't been Premier League proven as much as good as he is. You just never know, do you? And Jesus, again, red hot form in pre-season. On the bench, you've got Nico Williams. I mean, again, if you downgrade like Neto or Bailey, it's going to allow you to get a defender who's probably going to get more returns than those two. I mean, you can play the risk if you want to, but personally, I wouldn't. Again, if you want to downgrade Ederson to Sanchez to give you that extra million in midfield and have that flexibility, you can. You've already got Pereira there, who's very solid, obviously, and we know he can play a few games if needed. But overall, your team is really, really solid. There's hardly anything I would change. I'd just say that double cheap beast midfield is a slight risk, but other than that, it's really, really good. So without further ado, let's get into the last team. So into our last team, if you are still here, you're an absolute legend. Please do subscribe and drop a like on the video. It only takes you a second, and it is highly appreciated. So starting off, we've got Mendy in goal, the 5 million keeper. We spoke about him, very solid. You also do have Matty Cash, and it is the back line that we've pretty much already seen. Trent, James, Zinchenko. Again, these players this year, the defensive options are very highly owned, because the prices that they are going to return more than the prices that are in midfield, and they're just very effective, and people going for 4 at the back, 5 at the back, where previously the meta was probably 3 at the back and investing in the attacking players, but this year it seems to be more heavily defensive. Obviously, you can't go wrong with that back line. It's very, very popular. The only thing you do have the risk of is Mendy and James, so maybe if you could get Ederson in goal, just so then you have two different players from two different teams, just because, again, if Chelsea concede, you might be in a bit of bother. But then you do have Jadon Sancho, a really nice differential. I wouldn't tell you to switch that one. Yes, there's Rashford, but we know Sancho's more guaranteed to play, and he has scored, I think it was 3 and 4 games in pre-season, so he looks like he can really kick on. Yes, it's pre-season, but if you're playing well in pre-season, it'll really help you carry that into the season, the actual season. Then you've got Son as captain. Interesting, no Salah. This is the first no Salah team that we've seen. Very different, but Son is $1 million more. I mean, it gives you that $1 million to be freed up. However, I still would go for Salah. People saying Luis Diaz is a good downgrade for Salah, but let's be honest, he's not going to get the numbers that Salah gets. However, I really do like Son. You know, we saw how many goals he scored and how many FPL points he did get last year, but Salah is still worth it for that extra $1 million more. However, again, I wouldn't be too fussy with Son. If I was you, I'd probably get Kane and Salah maybe, but that's just me. Luis Diaz, we've spoken about, a very good asset for 8 million. Could have been more expensive at 9.5 million, but that 8 million valuation is really good. Then you've got Bailey, again, a really good differential. He's been razor sharp in pre-season. Gerrard did say he'd come back a different player, as we've discussed. And the usual front two of Jesus as Haaland. You know, it's just an incredible front two. Then on the, this is what we like to see. A nice bench. Obviously, get Ward in the goalkeeper position there, because we know he's going to play most likely. You've got Edouard. Now, I would downgrade Edouard to probably Greenwood, the minimum, so you can have more money to spend elsewhere, and put him last on your bench, because you only need 2 players really on your bench at most that are going to play. I mean, you could downgrade Neto and get Andreas Pereira if you really wanted, just so then you can only have 1 budget bench player and 1 budget on the pitch, because again, like we just previously spoke about, it is risky having 2 budget players because it doesn't give you much flexibility to move if they do not perform. So as I say, maybe downgrade one of them to Pereira. This will give you more money on your pitch, and again, you could get like the likes of Cancelo at the back. You could also get Salah in your team then, because I would certainly have Salah. Soufal is a really good rotational option, probably the best 4.5 million option alongside Dalot, I would say, and maybe Lamptey. Lamptey's really taken my eyes. If Lamptey plays in like game week 3 and game week 4 and gets a little run of starts going, I might look at transferring him in for Digne when Aston Villa's fixtures get really tough. But we've seen a lot of template teams, and honestly, Jess's team here is really, really good. It just follow pretty much the FPL template, and you can't really go wrong with that. Obviously, there is a few little tweaks I would make, just downgrading your bench so you can upgrade in your starting 11 just so you can get more points each week, and you do have that 1 transfer each week, so I feel like it's safe to have only 1 or 2 players that play game week in, week out. So then, you know, you have that flexibility, as I said, to change if players get injured or suspended. But that is the team review episode for today. If you have enjoyed, please subscribe as always and leave a like on the video. And without further ado, I will see you in the next one.